Obviously, I'm really excited for this interview, which I told you about, like your story coming from Eritrea. You somehow managed to find success in the US, which is never an easy thing to do. So it's very inspiring. And so before we get into that part, the success part, can you walk us through growing up in Eritrea and then transition over into coming into the US and what that was like for you as a child?
Okay, so I was born in 1949 in Asmara, Eritrea. Asmara is the capital city of Eritrea. Uh, in 1949, Eritrea was under the British military administration. Uh, Before that, Eritrea was a colony of Italy between 1890 to 1941. In 1952, Ethiopia annexed Eritrea by force. 10 years later, the Eritrean people rebelled and formed EPLF, Eritrean People's Liberation Front. And growing up, it was an underground freedom movement. So virtually all of us were involved in one way or the other. In 1968, I came to the United States to study at Haverford College. Before that, I spent a year in New York, but that's just small. Then I graduated in double major in economics and political science. Between 72 to 76, I did all kinds of odd jobs. I was a community organizer. I did this, I did that. And my first break came when the former president of Haverford College referred me to work for a small foundation called New World Foundation in New York. I was there for 3 years. And then after that, I got a call from the Ford Foundation, and I was there for 6 years. That working for the Ford Foundation, I would say, was a major breakthrough, because when you work for such an established institution, you get to meet people, you get to see places, and you learn a great deal. Then after that, I came to Washington, started working for a real estate company. And I worked my way all the way to become a CEO. And I decided to retire in 2009, September. At that time, I had no idea what I'm going to do. And then the Ford Foundation calls me and they said, hey, we'd like you to work for us in Detroit as an advisor. And that led to a number of other opportunities. And 13 years later, I have been advising Music Hall, the city of Pontiac, many other foundations, many developers. And then I come to Boston and meet Rico.
I kind of want to dial back into the real estate, like is that something that you always had in the back of your mind? Were you always like, I kind of want to be in real estate someday? Or was it kind of thrown at you? Because I'm kind of getting the sense that like you're really good at adapting. It's kind of like life was just throwing different things at you and you were able to adapt based on what life threw at you.
I think that's an excellent question. When I was in college, I was a double major in economics and political science. The two professions I've never heard were philanthropy and real estate, let alone know anything about philanthropy. I never knew the field existed. I've seen signs that says real estate, and I had no idea the meaning. So I end up working almost for 10 years in philanthropy, actually 15 years too. And then I end up working in real estate for almost 35 years. I think what was important was at any position, somebody played a role. I have not done any of the positions or the jobs by myself. Somebody recommended me for college. Somebody recommended me to my first job. Somebody recommended me to my second, third, and so forth. So I'm always leery of people who said, I made it by myself. That's a myth. And people always forget that there are other people who made it possible. Yes. I can name names. Had it not been for a man by the name Harris Wofford, who eventually became the US senator from Pennsylvania, I would not have gone to Harvard College. Had it not been for a man by the name Jack Coleman, I would not have worked for that small foundation. Had it not been for a woman by the name Miriam Wright Edelman from Children's Defense Fund and Jack Greenberg from Legal Defense Fund, I would not have worked for the Ford Foundation. Had it not been for the former Secretary of State Cyrus Vance, I would not have worked for NHP Foundation. Then, by the time I became 60, by that time I have enough under my belt. Sure, people did recommend me this client, that client, that client, but only after 60 can I take even slight credit to myself. So you really have to have other people who bet on you. Somebody may say, Rico, I think you will be good for this job. And your answer will be, well, I don't know if I'm good enough. And they will tell you, you have the drive, you have the intelligence, you have the ability to learn, therefore you could do it. In other words, it's always good to have other people who have confidence in you than you have confidence in yourself. Now, the flip side, which is a recipe for failure, are people who think of themselves higher than they really are. People who think they could do everything by themselves. I've heard so many people get up and said, well, I worked my way up. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. Hey, dude, wait a minute. You mean you were living like Robinson Crusoe in an island all by yourself? So that is another big myth. So whoever it is, the moment they say, I did this, I get very leery. I will not tell you whatever I got, whatever, minor success I had, it would not have occurred absent of the people who took a risk and who had more confidence in me than I had confidence in myself.
Wow, that shows a lot about your character, the fact that you're able to say you didn't do it all on your own, you had help. Because I feel like it's like you said, a lot of people, they put themselves above everybody else, so they're not able to admit and say, I had help from my parents, I had help from a friend, I had help from so and so. It's always, look at what I did, or I got help from God. I feel like a lot of people, or they make it all about themselves.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned parents. I mean, I was very lucky. I had a wonderful father and mother. They were loving, caring, brought all kinds of resources. Had I not had that background, because I was living in a country where 90% or 95% of the people didn't have running water or electricity, or they were not able to send their kids to school. And I went to school with some of them. They were studying at night, sitting under the street lights. Okay. And I had lights in my house. I had all those. And they were much more challenged than I was. I had a bed. They were sleeping on the floor. Now come forward, you come here, regardless who you are, there will always be, number one, there are always people willing to help you because they themselves will help. So I mentioned a number of people to you. I mentioned a number of, some are dead, some are alive. Every time I tell them, what can I do for you? They said, no, you cannot do for me. Just do to others what I have done for you. And they always say, had it not been for XYZ, I would not be where I am.
It's beautiful.
So I try to do to the best of my ability for others. So when he told me that you want to interview me, even though we met very briefly, and frankly, I don't like to talk about myself, I said, you know what?
Your story is beautiful. I couldn't resist it.
Somebody may be able to gain, and my phone rings every day, that. I can't afford to give him some time.
Yeah, and I am honored for that. I just love it knowing that, as I previously said, what you were able to overcome, which is like my next question for you. Do you believe in the sense of the American dream, as some people might call it?
I don't. It's a
Can
myth.
expand on that? I love that.
So when I first came to America, I knew very little about America other than movies. I was told that anybody could become president, anybody could do this, and so forth. The first thing, and when you are in Africa, you hear about racism in America. Mind you, because we used to see the pictures where the dogs were biting the demonstrators in Montgomery, Alabama. You hear signs that says no color. You read about all those. And then they tell you where things have changed. These were many years ago. And although it took me a while, racism is very hard to understand, especially if you are not born here. It doesn't matter how long I have lived here. You first have to figure out, is race playing a role here, or is a race not playing over here? And it was very hard for me to figure out. So the reason why I'm skeptical, the American dream, yes, there is an American dream for the Irish immigrants, for the Polish immigrants, and everybody who comes over the boat, for the people who come from Cuba. But when it comes to Black Americans, first I consider myself a Black American. First, they suffered an outright racism, and now it has become institutionalized. It's much more indirect. So they always have to work hard. They are constantly have to make a judgment. Am I being rejected from that job because I'm Rico? Or am I being rejected because I'm Black? And I don't blame you, because sometimes you don't know it. Sometimes you could make a mistake. You were really rejected from that job because you were Rico.
Wow.
Okay? Sometimes you were really rejected because they just didn't want to hire a black person. They will not say it because they will get in trouble with the law. So when the people tell me about American dream, I always said, yes, the American dream works for new immigrants, or it may work for many white people, but the American dream has not worked for Black Americans who have been here, who built this country for hundreds of years. So that's why I said to you, this American dream is a myth. What I suggest to my brothers and sisters younger than me is, because you have the obstacles, you just have to work extra hard. Everything being equal, it is incumbent on you. I have to prove I'm intelligent. I have to prove I'm a hard worker. I have to prove I have all the skills. A white person he disprove he's not intelligent. She has to disprove she's not intelligent. So there's a different standard. Rico has to prove he's bright. So that's why some white people will come to you and say, Rico, you're so bright. And your answer should be, is this the first time you met a bright person? But they are surprised. The implication to me, what is implicit there is, I was not expecting you to be bright. You know, Rico, you have no idea how many times people would ask me little things who I am, what I did, and I sort of played down. Wow, you're so wonderful. Jesus Christ, you must be great. You want this? I said, I was not the only person who went to Haverford College. I was not the first person to be a CEO of a company. I was not the first person to serve on public company boards. Why are you surprised? Well, the reason why they are surprised is because their expectation of me is low.
Wow.
And I don't take, when people compliment me, I look at it as an insult. I don't say, yes, you're right. I'm great. I've done this. I have developed so many housings. I don't give them what I have accomplished. I just look at them. I said, I don't think I've done anything than what a normal person would do. When you come back with that response, they don't know what to say.
I'm very, very speechless right now. You just made me you just gave me a moment of like revelation. Just like, I don't think I'll ever view life the same way, like after getting complimented now, I don't think I'll be able to just take it as a compliment now. Now I'll have to think, oh, did I surprise them based on,
Yes.
and I never thought about that until,
Or they will tell you, oh, Rico, you speak so well because they are not using bad words. You are speaking very good English. You present yourself well. So why are you surprised? I'm not suggesting to you every time they say to you, you should respond that. But you can't help it. I'm not saying all. The surprise you see in their face is why are you surprised I'm doing all those things? Because what is the underlying message is, I didn't expect you to be this good.